Welcome back to the deep dive. We are here again, ready to tear through stacks of sources, analyze the insights, and really deliver the actionable knowledge you need fast. Today, we've got something pretty timely. An urgent call to action, really, framed as a leadership playbook. It's drawn directly from Brené Brown's upcoming work, Strong Ground. The full title is Strong Ground. The lessons of daring leadership, the tenacity of paradox, and the wisdom of the human spirit. Quite a mouthful.
It is, but that title really signals the depth here.
Absolutely. So this deep dive, it's specifically for you, the listener. You might be a leader, maybe just someone trying to stay sane and effective while, well, navigating this incredibly uncertain work environment we're all in. Our mission today is to pull out the actionable, the tactical insights you need to lead effectively through this turbulence. We need concrete strategies, right? Things that help leaders move past what the research is calling bluster, hubris, and cruelty, which seems to be increasingly accepted.
Yeah, that framing is just so critical because what underpins this whole thing, it's not just some abstract theory cooked up somewhere quiet.
Right.
The foundation of Strong Ground comes from 6 years of actual field work using the Dare to Lead courage-building framework.
Okay.
And what's really fascinating is the scale. I mean, this framework, it's been tested, seriously stress-tested, and then refined by over 150,000 leaders.
150,000?
Yeah, across 45 countries.
Yeah.
So this is genuinely globally distilled real-world experience. It means the insight should be, immediately relevant.
Okay, let's unpack that right away because that scope is huge. The author is very clear this is meant to be a comprehensive playbook.
A playbook.
And the audience seems surprisingly wide. It covers everyone from C-suite execs running complex strategies,
Right.
all the way down to Gen Zers just entering the workforce, navigating this turbulence for the first time. It's aiming for a kind of universal language for courageous leadership.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Trying to provide a single unifying model for how we should all be showing up, basically. And the main goal, the central goal of this reimagined leadership, it's defined as reclaiming both focus and power growth.
Focus and power growth. Okay.
But, and this is key, to do that successfully, you have to shift where you're grounded. The framework demands that leadership has to be exercised intentionally from a place of, connection, discipline, and accountability.
Connection, discipline, accountability.
Those three. They're positioned as totally non-negotiable for, future relevance.
Okay, I can immediately see a potential tension there because, accountability and discipline often sound like old school top-down performance management.
Yeah, the traditional way.
Which can clash pretty violently with ideas like wholeheartedness or connection.
Yeah.
So how does this framework make sure leaders don't just, use discipline as cover for that same old harsh style?
That is honestly the perfect question. And it gets right to a core falsehood the work is explicitly confronting, which is this perpetuation of the idea that performance and wholeheartedness are somehow mutually exclusive.
Ah, right. The old either.
Exactly. It challenges that notion that you have to choose, either be effective or be human. The research actually demonstrates that sustainable, high-performing cultures, they're the ones that demand both, accountability and vulnerability.
Okay.
So discipline in this context isn't about harshness. It's the structure needed to let connection and accountability actually thrive together. It stops the chaos that, self-protection inevitably creates when things get tough.
That makes sense. Discipline as the container for vulnerability, not the opposite of it. Okay, let's talk about the context, the world right now, because the source gives a pretty unflinching assessment of the anxiety around tech change, particularly AI.
Yes, and this context leads to a really crucial and frankly quite sobering caution. Brown advises leaders to avoid a common platitude. I should quote this directly from the source.
Please do.
She says, avoid saying, what makes us human will ensure our relevance.
Why avoid that? It sounds hopeful.
She calls that kind of thinking dangerous. Why? Because, she argues, right now, we're not especially good at what makes us human.
Ouch. Okay.
Think about it. We're hardwired, especially in uncertain times, to feel this constant need to self-protect. And that drive, ironically, pushes the vulnerability, the empathy, the actual humanity right out of us.
So we become defensive, rigid.
Exactly, which is precisely what AI doesn't do. It doesn't get defensive in the same way.
That specific point that our fear of disruption is undermining the very humanity AI can't replicate, that's a chilling thought for any leader.
It really is.
If self-protection is driving us, we're essentially losing our only unique advantage. So if fear is pushing out humanity, what does this mean for organizational transformation? What needs to change?
It means transformation can't just be about efficiency or output anymore. not solely. The transformation now has to actively, intentionally foster deep connection, deep thinking, and deep collaboration inside the workplace.
Deep connection, deep collaboration.
Yes, that's positioned as the only strategic way to genuinely honor and protect what the source calls the wisdom of the human spirit. If we don't specifically design our organizations for these human elements, we can't just hope they'll magically emerge on their own.
Especially not under pressure.
Especially not then.
Okay, connecting this to the bigger picture then, this transformation translates directly into a huge new set of essential skills and mindsets for leadership, right? What does this new toolkit actually look like?
It feels like a complete overhaul, really.
Yeah.
It demands a capacity for respectful and difficult conversations, the kind most leaders frankly avoid.
Definitely.
It requires strategic risk-taking,
Right.
embracing paradoxical thinking, holding two opposing ideas at once, strong situational and anticipatory awareness skills. But there's one specific term that keeps popping up I want to focus on: increased productive urgency.
Productive urgency. Okay, that sounds a bit like leadership jargon. I imagine it's different from just, blind reactivity or demanding everyone work faster. What does productive urgency actually mean in practice?
Good question. It's defined as prioritizing impact over just activity, making sure speed is only applied to the high-leverage tasks, the ones that really move the needle.
Not just being busy.
Exactly. In a turbulent environment, it's so easy for everyone to feel urgent about everything. Productive urgency is the discipline to stop that chaotic scattering of energy, focus speed only where it truly matters, and consciously ignore the rest. It's smart prioritization at the speed of trust is how it's framed.
That clarity is vital. But, okay, among all those demanding new skills, difficult conversations, strategic risk, paradox, the research apparently identifies one single skill set as the toughest, and that is the discipline, the humility, and the confidence required to unlearn and relearn.
Yes, that's the big one.
It requires leaders to actually admit that the old methods, the things that brought them success before, might now be insufficient. And that admission alone takes incredible vulnerability and strength.
And this brings us right back perfectly, actually, to the title Strong Ground. Brown defines strong ground as the athletic stance for leadership.
The athletic stance, like a quarterback.
Exactly. Think of a quarterback in the pocket, maybe a tennis player ready to receive a serve. That stance provides two things at the same time. Unwavering stability in what the source calls a maelstrom of uncertainty.
Right, stability.
And a platform for the fast, explosive change the world is demanding right now.
Ah, okay. So it's not rigid stability, like a concrete pillar. It's dynamic stability, like a spring maybe, ready to move. How does a leader actually build that kind of, physical discipline into their daily work?
Precisely. It's about building new organizational muscle. It means getting comfortable with disequilibrium, with not always having the answers immediately.
Okay.
It means developing what's later called grounded confidence, another key concept, where your self-worth isn't tied to always being right,
Yeah.
but to being resilient.
Being resilient, not right. Got it.
And that requires the leader to hold multiple, sometimes conflicting truths at the same time, which is exactly why the emphasis on paradox is so strong throughout the work.
I definitely noticed that emphasis. It's right there in the subtitle, The Tenacity of Paradox. And there's a whole chapter titled Paradox and the Human Spirit, featuring a poem by Clint Smith called All at Once.
Yeah.
That signals that embracing contradictions isn't just some mental exercise, is it? It's central to actually building that strong ground. You have to accept you are stable and ready for change, disciplined and wholehearted, accountable and vulnerable, all at once.
All at once. That's the challenge.
So, if this athletic stance requires such complex, often contradictory skills like unlearning and embracing paradox, who are the guides she brought in? Who shows us how it's done? Let's pivot to the specific insights and collaborators in this playbook because they really show the breadth of thinking here.
Yeah, this is where the playbook idea really comes alive, I think. It brings together strategic thinkers from completely different fields. It's quite impressive.
Like who?
Well, for instance, you have Adam Grant, the organizational psychologist. He contributes insight on searching for reasons we might be wrong.
Okay, that makes sense. If strong ground needs humility and unlearning.
Exactly. Grant's work is vital for creating the actual mechanisms for leaders to challenge their own assumptions. How do you do that systematically?
Right.
Then we also see Amy Webb, who's a strategic futurist.
A futurist. Why a futurist in a leadership book?
Because she offers wisdom on steering into the slide. In times of massive uncertainty, the natural tendency is just to freeze up, right?
Totally. Deer in headlights.
Webb's insight is about anticipating the inevitable bad outcomes or challenges and actively preparing the organization to steer through the challenge rather than just waiting to get run over by it.
Practical anticipation. Okay, who else?
We also see Ginny Clark offering a really crucial distinction on managing, leading, and why we need both.
Ah, that's a classic confusion. Operations versus vision.
Yes. It addresses that confusion many organizations face over distinguishing operational excellence from, visionary direction. You need both, but they're different muscles.
Makes sense. And Dan Pink is in there too, focusing on symphonic thinking. That term sounds complex, maybe a bit jargony. What's that about?
It does sound a bit complex, but given the environment, I think it's about synthesizing diverse, often contradictory information to see the bigger patterns.
Okay, pulling things together.
That's exactly it. Symphonic thinking is that high-level ability to connect to disparate elements, could be art, data, philosophy, performance metrics, into a coherent strategic whole, moving beyond just pure analytical thinking to a more holistic, creative synthesis.
Interesting.
And that chapter features another really powerful piece of creative expression, the poem Terminal Resistance by Dr. Joy Buolamwini, which speaks directly to resisting algorithmic biases in tech systems.
Wow, okay. Poetry and algorithms.
Right. And finally, you see Abby Wambach, the soccer legend. She offers lessons on leading, pointing, and running, bringing in that very practical, high-performance athletic energy needed to physically embody that strong ground stance we talked about.
Leading, pointing, running. That's very direct. These connections are incredible merging philosophy, strategy, high-performance athletics. And the chapter titles themselves, the conceptual practices, those seem like the real nuggets of knowledge, suggesting tangible tools.
Definitely.
Like lock in and lock through power. That sounds intriguing. Or the above below the line practice. These sound like things you could actually use tomorrow.
They do. And concepts like pocket presence and grounded confidence alongside the more philosophical ode to negative capability.
Okay, explain a couple. What's lock in and lock through power?
So these are framed as highly specific practices to help leaders develop that dynamic athletic stance. Lock-in and lock-through power seems to be about the discipline needed to commit to a direction, that's the lock-in,
Okay.
while also maintaining the flexibility and humility needed to pivot when the situation changes. That's the lock-through. So it's discipline, commitment, combined with adaptability, not getting stuck.
Got it. Commitment with an escape hatch, almost. What about ode to negative capability? That sounds very literary.
It is. It's originally a literary concept from Keats. But in a leadership context, it's presented as resisting that powerful impulse to rush to certainty when things are chaotic or ambiguous.
So being okay with not knowing for a bit.
Exactly. It's the confidence required to just sit in ambiguity, to not immediately force a conclusion, allowing deeper insights to maybe surface, which seems vital when you're facing totally unprecedented challenges like, say, widespread AI integration.
Right, you can't just apply the old answers. And pocket presence and grounded confidence, that really sounds like the internal feeling of strong ground.
I think so.
That ability to stay calm, focused, even when everything around you feels like it's collapsing. It all seems to tie back to that critical psychological space the source mentions, between stimulus and response.
Binding that pause.
Precisely. And if we try to summarize the core thesis here, it really is that courageous leadership, right now, in the 21st century, it demands an immediate move beyond easy answers, and certainly beyond hubris.
Instead, leaders have to intentionally adopt this athletic stance, this strong ground, which is built fundamentally on discipline, humility, and intentional connection. Those are the core ingredients.
Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting, something for you, the listener, to maybe mull over. The sources indicate a significant, very intentional role for creative expression in this whole leadership discussion.
It's woven throughout.
We're talking about tactical strategy sitting right alongside poetry. Poems by Clint Smith, Dr. Joy Buolamwini, David White, his poem Just Beyond Yourself is featured in a chapter. So the question to ponder is, what does it actually mean for modern, bottom-line focused leadership to integrate poetry, the human spirit, alongside things like strategic risk-taking and productive urgency?
It's a big question.
It suggests that creative expression isn't just, fluffy stuff. It might actually be a necessary tool, a way to practice ambiguity, to connect to the deepest parts of our humanity.
Which the source argues are the very skills that will ensure relevance.
It's exactly. The skills needed in a world increasingly dominated by automation. Maybe that integration is the final frontier of courageous leadership. Something to think about. Well, that's it for this deep dive into the essentials of courageous leadership and finding your strong ground based on Brené Brown's upcoming work. We hope this gave you some actionable insights, maybe some definitional clarity that you needed to start applying these concepts today.